the Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Italian Football Podcast, the official podcast of Football Italia. I'm Carlo Garganese, joined as always by Nima and Carlo. Happy New Year to everybody. This is our first Monday show of the new year. Hope everybody had a great New Year's Eve celebration and has a great year ahead. On today's show, we will be discussing Thiago Motta's future at Juventus, as for the first time, really, his position is now being called into question following the defeat to Milan in the Supercoppa semi-final in Saudi Arabia. We'll also review the very limited Serie A programme this weekend. It's going to be a much shorter show today. Two big games as Napoli Flatten Fiorentina to temporarily go top of Serie A. And then, of course, the Rome derby, Claudio Ranieri masterminding victory for Roma over Lazio. And we'll also have our usual Baggio, Premface and Serie Ass of the week. For all our first-time listeners, this is our free weekly episode that we do every Monday, reviewing the weekend Serie A action and all the biggest talking points in Italian football. If you want to support the Italian Football Podcast and receive all of our content that we do throughout the week, including a weekly Q&A episode every Tuesday where we answer all of the questions from our patrons, plus the weekly Thursday midweek review show, plus interviews, post-match reaction and much, much more, then go to patreon.com/TIFP and become a subscriber for just $2.99 a month plus VAT. You can also sign up to be a paid subscriber on Spotify. We'll provide the link in the description, same price and terms. And for all of you that do listen on Spotify, Apple and iTunes podcasts, we'd really appreciate if you give us a 5-star rating. Give us a follow and a like. We're also on YouTube as well. All of that really helps us to grow and do more quality content for you
And
guys.
starting this week, we have now launched the YouTube memberships as well, meaning you can become a supporter, or instead of going on Patreon or Spotify to support the show, you can go do it on YouTube as well, because we've grown so much in the last 7-8 months that we started doing this. So we figured we might as well offer memberships, exclusive memberships there too, which means basically that you get everything that patrons get on other platforms, but you get it on YouTube. And I'm not sure exactly if you get it without ads or with ads. I don't know how that works yet, because YouTube are a little bit unclear, or I'm just a bit of a boomer. Probably both, a combo of both. But it's $5.99 a month there on YouTube. And we'll be, given that we also are doing more videos and stuff like that, we're really trying to grow that community there, because it's a different community, and we've discovered that we've reached very new audiences there as well. It's a huge audience. So yeah, there'll be a link to YouTube there as well for $5.99 a month.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's get into today's show. So we're going to start off with Juventus and Thiago Motta. For the first time, really, on this show, I think we have to now ask the question, because his Juventus position, for the first time, really, is starting to be questioned. And we're maybe not at the stage of he's at risk of the sack, but I think we're definitely at the stage where the question needs to be asked. And in my opinion, it's warranted to ask this question now. This is Juventus. It's the biggest club in Italy, the most successful club domestically in Italy. And if you are halfway through the season, which is where we are now basically, and you're out of the top 4 and you've won just 7 of your 18 Serie A games, and most importantly, which I think we'll come to in a bit, there are improvements are not being seen in some key areas, in particular the attack, then yes, I think the question needs to be asked. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find anybody that wouldn't say that, whatever side of the fence they're on, whether they're pro Motta or not. And I think it's only fair the question has to be asked. Just like it was asked, and I asked it of Allegri and Pirlo before, who were similarly struggling at this stage of their first seasons. I think the question needs to be asked. Do I think Motta should be sacked? Well, I think that's a different question altogether. There's lots to take into account with that, which we can go through now. He's 6 months into a 3-year project. It's a new project with a revolutionised squad. It's a squad that has gone from counter-attacking football for 3 years to possession-orientated football with an incredibly young team. It's the youngest team, the Juventus that have set new records for how young they are, this Juventus team, in Champions League and Serie A. If you're going to sack Motta, do you make the decision to tear that project up after 6 months? So really, where I'm at is, yes, the question absolutely should be asked, but should he be sacked? That's a different question altogether.
Yeah, that's kind of pretty much where I am too. You know my position on sacking coaches and sacking managers. I think it depends entirely on whether or not has the working relationship between the coach and the players deteriorated to the point where you can't rehabilitate it, where they can't work together anymore, where the results are so awful that it warrants that you need to break everything up. I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're close to there yet. I understand. The question, should he be sacked, is a resounding no, for the reasons you outlined. I think it would be complete insanity if Juventus did that. I think it would be make Giuntoli and make the Juve leadership look like even bigger clowns and clueless than the Milan ownership and directors who did what they did against Fonseca. I think the biggest difference between Fonseca and Thiago Motta is exactly that. There were obviously some issues in the dressing room between the coach and the players from pretty much the onset. It just didn't. There was something there that they didn't work in the most harmonious way, and of course Milan are in a worse position than Juventus are. So I think that's the biggest difference between those two issues, those two instances. So no, I don't think he should be sacked. I don't think he will be sacked for the reasons I outlined. But the question whether or not to discuss,
I think I agree with you. I think the only way that you can sack him now is if he has either lost the dressing room or he doesn't have either the trust and belief of his squad and the club, but the squad especially. But more so, he's not. It's been proven that the squad and he's not able to get a tune out of his squad, and that I think was clear with Milan. Coming to Milan, it was clear with Milan and Fonseca that if he hadn't lost the dressing room, he'd certainly lost the ability to influence, to get what he wanted out of the squad, to make it understood, but also to have that authority and that faith of his squad, we clearly didn't have. I don't feel like we obviously you can never say for sure unless you're inside the dressing room. You can never say for sure what the situation is. But from the people I've spoken to and everything, we're not there. We're not there. There isn't that situation. He hasn't lost control of the dressing room. There are some players that are not happy with some of his training methods and how that's contributing to injuries and fatigue. But we're not. There's nobody that seems to doubt Motta's ability as a coach in general. So while that's the case, then I think that you can't make the same decision that maybe Milan were able to make because Fonseca. That wasn't the case with Fonseca.
Well, and also these things matter, not just points tally, but Milan have lost 4 games in the Serie A. Juventus have lost 0. These things are important as well. They haven't won, of course. They've won the same equal amount of games. Of course, Milan have won less game played. They've won 7, but these things matter as well, like losing games, and they haven't lost games. And defensively, they've looked more solid than Milan, but overall in games. But it doesn't mean that they've been good defensively either, because with Juve, it's been like, yes, if the defense looks good, the attack looks atrocious. But when the attack looks good, the defense is wide open. So that suggests to me that, these are more, that's a problem, of course, but it's not like with Milan, who they beat Real Madrid and then they drop points against lower teams like time and time again like that. It's just a different dynamic.
Yeah,
And
it's
of
more
course,
it's more inconsistent. But I would say on the defensive side, I think there's. I mean, if there's a noticeable drop off since the injury to Bremer with the defense, and even if you look at like the last month of games, I mean, Juventus have conceded 2 goals exactly in 4 of their last 5 games now. And then before the Man City game, they also conceded 2 against Bologna. They conceded against Lecce. So we're seeing like the Juventus are consistently starting to concede now. I think the effect of Bremer is being seen now.
yeah.
It's the Juventus have conceded more and more goals. So he's gonna lose that. He's got to be careful not to lose that credit as well, because that has been the one thing that's kind of held Juventus together. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
listen,
basically, what I wanted to say is basically that I think there's a really there's an important uh, difference between what happened at Milan and Juve, uh, and my issue is that I think with if we're going to talk about Thiago Motta more specifically, I do think that he has the results aren't good enough. Um, I think the results are yes, the injury issue is a Juventus club problem and it has been for many years. They need to look at that. You can't blame Motta for that because it's been happening under Allegri as well. And there are several other aspects as well, important aspects that have happened under Allegri and now under Motta, such as Dusan Vlahovic, which I think is a huge important factor. Juventus, no team can have their starting number 9 be this ice cold for such a long period of time and it not have an adverse impact on their results. Maybe only Inter can, or Napoli to a much lesser extent, can get away with that because of the way that the quality they have in midfield, the quality they have in other players that can make up for that, and also other strikers, but they play differently. And same thing with Napoli, you got someone like Scott McTominay in the Conte system that excels because of the system, right? These are different things. And I think that, of course, Thiago Motta has to kind of reach that level too. But the Dusan Vlahovic situation has been a situation that has been ongoing, and I think he's saved a little bit by that. When he can't even rehabilitate Dusan Vlahovic, then there's then Juventus will be forced to act. But
yeah.
regardless,
Well,
regardless.
just
Well, let
before you
me
get to
just
the
try. Yeah,
regardless, because let's get the excuses out of the way first. The injury crisis and Vlahovic. The injury crisis, there's no doubt the injury crisis has ravaged Juventus this season. There was a period of 2 months, kind of in November, end of October, November into December, where Juventus only had like a couple of outfielders as on their bench for long stretches of those 2 months.
yeah, I
I
remember.
mean, Juventus have lost their best player for the whole season in Bremer. They haven't been able to put a senior backline out for stretches this season. People forget that Savona was a next-gen player at the beginning of the season. He was rushed into the team because of lack of options, and he just kind of stayed there, and he's done well. But
Well, that's another thing as well. That
so the point I'm making is, and then they've had one striker, if you can call him a striker, Vlahovic, for the first half of the season. One completely let's be honest, useless striker to play for the entire season. Now that is going to massively impact any manager, but it's easy to overlook because that's what happens once injuries happen after a couple of months, a few months. People forget that you're without your best player for the whole season, and
yeah.
they just forget about it,
Well,
and as
what I
if it
want,
doesn't matter. So
yeah.
we do that. I mean, I'm just going through the excuses here. We'll get to the where he's failing in a second, but that would affect any manager, especially a manager that's just starting at a new team, with all the revolution that's taken place with changing the style, changing so many new players, having the youngest team in the league. That would affect anybody. I think
But that's the
that.
thing, though. That's what I wanted to say. I think that's also the saving grace.
Mm,
Mbangula, Savona, Yildiz. The fact that he is making young players look good and improving. Nobody expected Mbangula and Savona to have the impact they had. Yildiz was an unwritten card. Great talent, but he was unwritten. You see that with Thiago Motta, and that's kind of, if he continues on with what he did at Bologna as well, the sense that he can improve young players, and as long as he can improve young players, and as long as young players respond to him, then his tenure at Juve won't be in
But I
called
do
into
have to come
question
back on that, Nima. There's hits and
wait,
misses.
let me finish. Until the results in the Serie A become out of the top four, then they have to act. But I don't think we're there yet. I don't think Juventus are going to finish outside the top four. But if we go to the other side of it, there is lots of cause for concern. And the game against Milan in isolation doesn't mean much, but it's a expression of a tendency that we've seen pretty much since match day 4-5 onwards in the Serie A until today, and that is that Juventus can't kill off games. Juventus are in control of games, but in the second half or in the middle of the second half fall apart and lose complete control and lose complete ability to control games. That is a concern. That is where Thiago Motta has failed more than anything.
Well, I think that's true, but I think it's the reason why they can't kill off games is because they don't create enough chances, and they can't, and so they're not going to score a second goal. That is the big problem, and that is the biggest concern. That's the only real concern I have with Motta, because this has been a constant throughout the season. And you said since game 4. I would say even from game 1. I mean, the 3-0 win over Como and the 3-0 win over Verona. If you look at the XG in that game, they way overshot their XG. They had a 1.31 XG against Como. They had a 1.36 XG against Verona, and I think wasn't one of them a penalty in that game. I think one of the goals was a penalty, if I'm not mistaken, in that Verona game. So even in those matches, they outperformed their actual XGs. This has been a constant all season, basically. Juventus do not create enough chances, and this is where it is a serious problem, because we are not seeing an improvement in the chance creation, the goal scoring. Yes, there are a lot of reasons for this, which I've gone through: the injury crisis, the fact you've only got one subpar striker that clearly doesn't fit Motta's system, the fact that Nico Gonzalez has barely been fit at all. Yildiz is 19 years old and is going to be inconsistent at that age. Of course, these are all reasons. But even when these players have been available, as they were, most of them were available in the Milan game. Nico's not fully fit, and Conceição gets an injured before the game. But even when he's had most of the offensive players available, we're still not seeing enough of a chance creation. Against Milan, they barely created anything. The only real big chance they had was the chance for Vlahovic at 1-0. They're not creating enough chances. And because we're not seeing an improvement, for me, that is where Motta's future is most at risk, because we're not seeing an improvement.
Well, that's what I was going to get to. I think the lack of chance creation is a combination of both Motta's inability structurally as a coach to create teams that create enough, and also because I think so far between Koopmeiners, Douglas Luiz, might as well be David Luiz, Douglas Luiz and Nico Gonzalez, that's 130 million euros, which to this date, on the 6th of January, has been a complete waste of money.
Yeah, that's the other area I was going to say.
That's what I was going to get. Wait, let me finish. My issue here is Thiago Motta. Yes, the chance creation can be a problem if you don't have, strikers who can help you out, blah, blah, blah. But the problem is the midfield isn't creating enough. This isn't a striker issue as such. This is more a structural issue with Motta. That's what he was able to do when he was at Bologna because of players like Calafiori, because of players like Zirkzee, who broke the patterns of games because of the kind of characteristics they had, whether it was hold up play and link up play with Zirkzee or running and breaking lines and press with Calafiori. They were able to mask a lot of that. And also it's Bologna. Teams aren't going to defend as deeply against you, right? But here I do see a structural problem in Thiago Motta's the way that he builds and structures, and that is he knows how to position teams to get out and it looks good in safe spaces. I've said this before, but as soon as they get near the opposition's penalty area, the creativity, the plan flatlines. There doesn't seem to be any structure in place for the final third, and that is on Motta. Now, some of that you can kind of say, well, that's the midfield, all three of them, the midfield trio should help out, right? And someone like Kefren Turam has in recent games shown an ability to kind of, mask up for that. But it doesn't change the fact that Luis Koopmeiners is just not working.
No, that's damning. Koopmeiners and Douglas Luiz, but it's not just on Motta. That's also on Giuntoli.
Without a doubt.
There's also, there needs to be a real proper investigation into the Koopmeiners.
We need to do an analysis. What's going on?
Because that is damning. Koopmeiners, he's persisting, and this is Christian. He keeps persisting with Koopmeiners as a number 10. It's clearly not working. Whether that's also because Vlahovic is so useless, and that's not helping him. If and when Xerxes comes in, whether suddenly Koopmeiners starts playing well as a number 10, is clearly not working. And the fact, and this is my other criticism of Motta, the fact that he keeps persisting, it's a cliche, but the definition of insanity, as has been repeated so many times, is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting things to change. We're just going round and round and round in circles with Motta. The same. It's like the famous scene from Squid Game with that song that everybody keeps be playing in the last week, of them going round and round in circles. Jido Jido Dondo song, the Korean song. Like, he just goes round and round in circles, the same thing over and over and over again, and it's the same tune all the time. And he's still persisting with it when it's clearly not working. Why is he persisting with Koopmeiners as a number 10? It's not working. So he needs to change something. Whether it goes to a 4-3-3 and plays Koopmeiners deeper, whether you just play Koopmeiners in the double pivot, I don't know. Why are you playing Koopmeiners as a 10? It's not working. He was abysmal against Milan. He was the only player on the pitch. The only player on the pitch was worse than him was Vlahovic. That Vlahovic performance against Milan was so bad. It was embarrassing. It was absolutely. Matteo Bonetti, check his Twitter feed. He did a compilation of his game. Like the most basic controls, the most basic 6-yard passes that he was getting wrong. The ball was coming to him, and he was tried to trap it, and it went under his foot. I mean, it was like watching. It was like watching a Sunday League donkey after that's drunk from the night before. That's how bad, embarrassing how bad Vlahovic is. I mean, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say about
Vlahovic. Thing is, like, it's not just even sitters anymore. It's not him just missing sitters. It's not the fact that he can't make simple passes. It's genuinely awful, at every level. He looks mentally off as well, which can happen. Things can become at one environment, it doesn't work out, and you leave and go somewhere else, and it just works for you because you find in a place where you're happy and you're enjoying yourself. And sometimes life just doesn't work out in certain places. But if we're talking from a football technical point of view, the issues are still the same. He can't play with his back against the ball, with his back against the goal. He can't link up. His passing, his ability to put others into play to help him is atrocious. His attitude just off. And
I have to stick up for Motta here with Vlahovic, because I've seen a lot of criticism for Motta for taking off Vlahovic midway through the second half against Milan, when Juventus are 1-0 up at that time, and then Juventus end up losing 2-1, and people kind of trying to put the two together, that taking Vlahovic off is what cost Juventus the game, and blah blah blah. Did anybody watch the 65 minutes that Vlahovic put in? That's probably the worst performance I've seen from Vlahovic in a Juventus shirt, and there are a lot of contenders for worst performance, let me tell you that. It was absolutely horrendous. I can't, anybody that watched that game and tell me that they wouldn't have taken Vlahovic off, even if you've got no striker on the bench. He was so bad. Every single ball that came to him, he lost. So I'm sorry. I cannot criticise Motta for taking Vlahovic off in that game. It's unfortunate that we've had a whole first half of the season where he's had no other striker to use. And that's on Giuntoli. That's not on Motta. Motta has been criticised for taking him off too much.
I think that's the right thing to do, and I think when it's not working, when you've tried everything else, because again, there's context here. Allegri tried everything with him too, and it just didn't work. It looked somewhat better. He had 15 goals last season in the Serie A, but the fact that this guy can't play with his back against the goal in a single like a one number 9 system is a Vlahovic problem.
You can't even control the ball, Nima, let alone hold the ball up. You can't even control it.
It's and this has been going on for a long time now. The only time
he's a lost cause, Nima. Let's just say what it is. He's gone. He's done.
This is the thing. When he was at Fiorentina, they were a side that attacked the space, and he scored a lot when he was faced towards goal. But when you play for the biggest sides, regardless in Italy, Spain, Germany, England, you're going to have to learn to play with your back against the goal in order to succeed. And the only time that someone like Romelu Lukaku was world class was when he was under Antonio Conte, because he taught him how to do that. Vlahovic has had 2 coaches now, who one established coach, one new up and coming, who evidently can work with young players and improve players. Both of them can't seem to get him to do it. He can't control the ball. He can't seem to do it. And that is a Vlahovic problem. That's not an Allegri problem. That's not a Motta problem. That's a Vlahovic problem. And that needs to be taken care of, in the sense that I've been on the fence because I wanted to give him time. But at this point, I think it's time to get rid of him.
I think that's obvious. The problem is
I think they have to get rid of him. I think it's just not.
When Nicola Skira is saying there's a possibility that he could even go this month, I think if the opportunity is there to get rid of him in January, I would get rid of him. But then you have to bring someone in, and that brings us on to the January transfer window. Because, like, if you get rid of Motta, which I don't think is going to happen, but if you get rid of Motta, it has to be now, like right now, today, tomorrow, before you sign players. Because if you're going to bring in players that are Motta players, like Xerxes, for example, who Juventus are in talks for at the moment, then there's no point bringing in Xerxes and then sacking Motta in 2 weeks, and then another coach comes in and it ends up being like at Man United where the coach doesn't want him. You bring in players for Motta. So if you're going to stick with Motta, then you stick with him and you bring in players that work for his system. And Xerxes is one of those players. And with regards to that, comes in nicely with Vlahovic. Like with Xerxes, I think he can help a lot. He can help to link the game up, to hold the ball up, to bring others into play, to make the other attackers and the midfielders that are going to be attacking forward, to make them better and to create more for them and hopefully get them to score more goals. Will he score more than Vlahovic? No, I think he'll score less than Vlahovic. Vlahovic does still have 12 goals this season somehow. I know a few of them are penalties. Vlahovic does still have 12 goals in all competitions, which, means he'll probably end the season with 24, 25 goals in all comps, which isn't actually that bad. But it masks the other problems that Xerxes will hopefully solve. So whether or not, this is going to solve Juventus's goal scoring issues, 30 goals in 18 Serie A games is simply not good enough. XG of 29 is not good enough. Will Xerxes solve that? I don't know. I can't say for certain that he will. I think he will make the team play better, though. And that will make the thing is better.
I think there's 2 aspects to the Xerxes discussion. We know that Thiago Motta can get fantastic levels out of Joshua Xerxes. There's no doubt about that. We've seen that. I think that he works better in a Motta system? Yes, of course he does, because the number 9 in the Motta system is almost a midfielder almost. You have to, they like to compact and overload the central midfield and then have dynamic midfielders and wide players who can help out to create numerical advantages and create more chances. Like, I think absolutely Xerxes works better than that. I even think that in terms of goal scoring, he's not I can't remember if Xerxes took penalties at Bologna, but regardless,
No, he didn't. I
no,
think
he
maybe he
didn't.
took
No.
one, maybe.
Yeah. But regardless, I think he's more important for the overall play, and I think he's still a young player, and he can maybe become. He's the kind of player, Zirkzee, that I think he's the kind of striker that usually that kind of a striker, they hit their goal scoring peak from 28, 29 onwards. But regardless, my concern about the Zirkzee transfer is we're talking about a player who's been pretty mentally abused at Manchester United. How broken is Zirkzee if he were to come to Juve? And can Juve afford to rehabilitate him and give him the time to rehabilitate him? That's what my concerns with Zirkzee is. Not that he would work at under Motta or in Serie A or at Juve or anything like that.
Well, Juventus have to do something. They could. I think it's pretty clear. You cannot go your second half of the season with Vlahovic, just Vlahovic, as your striker. Milik, who's had another little injury problem, doesn't. He's going to be out for still a while longer. And when he comes back, he would have been out for pushing on a year. So I mean, that's obviously ridiculous. So they need to sign someone, and Zirkzee seems to be available. But Giuntoli has to prove himself. Obviously he needs to
That's
sign.
another
He
thing.
needs to sign defenders. So far, his overall transfer market has failed. Some of his transfers have worked and been good. Like Kalulu's been really good. Conceição, I think, has shown enough to show that he can have he's going to be an important player for Juventus going forward. Some of his transfers, Thuram, I think, has been good. Di Gregorio, even though he was terrible against Milan, I think he's been pretty good. So I mean, there has been success stories there. Even Cabal was good until he got the injury, and that's unlucky. You can't blame Giuntoli for that.
him for
But
that.
also, there has been some huge failures, especially Luiz and Koopmeiners for the money that was spent.
Those were the big signings. Those were
Yeah.
the big financial undertakings in
Yeah.
the summer, and they've both
And the
miserably
gaps
failed
that
so
he
far.
did, yes, and the gaps that he didn't solve, like going into the season with just Vlahovic, having to spend the first half of the season with just Vlahovic as your only striker. That's unforgivable. That's a huge failure, the
And
biggest
I think
failure of all from
and
Giuntoli.
that's also that's also part of the reason that I wanted to bring that up. And I think that Giuntoli is very capable. I think he's good at what he does. I think we should give him time too, but the buck has to stop with him. He's the one who's responsible for the sporting project. He's the one who's responsible for the structure of this new Juve. And although there are positives, there are also very, very big failures and negatives. And the buck has to stop with him. He has to take responsibility for that. Does that mean he has to leave? Of course not. That's stupid. Let's remember that Marotta failed in his first year and a half or two at Juve as well. It took some time. Yeah, it took some time for Juve under Marotta to things to settle down, for things to go into gear. So I think we should give Giuntoli this season, but I'm looking at it from next season that he can't afford, already in January, if they're going to do something, they can't afford to F this up.
Well, I'm critical of Giuntoli already because for January already. I have to be honest. We're January the 6th now. Now Bremer done his ACL in October. When was it? Beginning of October. I mean, he's had like pushing on 3 months now to prepare and plan to get in a replacement for Bremer. Then of course you had the Cabal injury as well, which was November, beginning of November. So that's 2 months. We shouldn't be here now at the 6th of January, and it's completely unclear as to who Juventus are going to sign at centre back. There was Tomori, there was Hanchko from Feyenoord, there was the Benfica guy Antonio Silva. Tomori, since the change around that doesn't look like it's going to happen because Conceição's come in. Hanchko's probably too expensive at the moment. Antonio Silva probably too expensive. We shouldn't be in a situation with January the 6th. And the biggest criticism I have is that Juventus have made a decision as a club, and this is through Giuntoli, to completely freeze out Danilo. Juventus are already completely massively understaffed, even with Danilo, who I'm not a fan of. I think he's finished as a top player, and he's not good enough. But you should not be freezing out one of your few bodies in January already. So he won't play again now for Juventus. You should not be freezing out Danilo, ready to sell him when you don't have a replacement already in place. So Juventus have had to play the Super Cup, and now they're going to have to play the Turin Derby, and they've got 3 huge tough games coming up after that. They don't even have one defender. They need two defenders in January, but maybe three if you're getting rid of Danilo. Probably yes, almost certainly you need three defenders. If you get rid of Danilo, you need an extra defender. So that's three defenders. They haven't brought anyone in, and it's complete. And it doesn't seem like any negotiations. I mean, I might be wrong. They might bring some two players in tomorrow, but it doesn't look like there's any negotiations that are going on that are close to bringing in a player or two or three. And you've just frozen out Danilo, so you've got even less options now in defence. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's just do not do that. Why do you freeze out Danilo? Keep playing him, then sell him once you've got someone in. I mean, I have to be critical, generally. He's had 3 months, 2 months and 3 months to plan for this. They should have already had someone in already by now. At least one defender should have been signed or very, very close to signing. And we're being told, well, they're in the final negotiations, blah, blah, blah. We're not even close to that. So I'm sorry, but I'm not impressed by the way Giuntoli started this January market either. He needs to get moving, and he needs to prove himself fast because Juventus have coming up Torino away, Atalanta away, Milan home, Napoli away. That's their next 4 games in Serie A. Then they have Inter in the middle of February as well. Now, Juventus are 3 points off 4th place right now. After this run of games, with the options, lack of options in defence, I'm talking about, with the problems in attack, with the form that they're in, I mean, they could be out of the top 4. They could be 7, 8, 9 points behind if they're if things go badly in those games. Giuntoli should have moved by now. We should have players in already now. So I'm not happy with Giuntoli the way he started this journey. He needs to get moving.
Yeah, no, he does. He absolutely does, and it's been pretty damning that he already that he hasn't, especially with Cabal and Bremer gone and Danilo, pushing Danilo. I get why you want to push Danilo out, but like you said, it's he's had a couple of months to do it, and it doesn't look like he's doing much. But then we've seen these Tomori links. I mean, I'm not, let's wait and see what happens. But yeah, I'm not too impressed with what he's done. I think but again, like I said, I give him this season because last season was not a real season. They couldn't do anything because of the blowback after Paratici. So this is the first season I think he's really we can judge him on. But he has to start getting it right already this January. So we'll see what happens by the end of January. But I do think that there's plenty of blame to go around. And I think there's been mistakes made. The question is, of course, are these mistakes irreparable? I don't think they are. I think they're more than reparable. And of course, where do you go? I don't think it's time to blow that project up yet. I don't think we're there yet. But I do think that serious questions need to be asked. And Thiago Motta has to start to deliver tactically, especially in the final third, regardless of who the players are, because players are playing. Of course, the quality of players matter, but when things flatline and consistently flatline for half a season, as soon as you approach the opposition's third, there is a problem. It's not just a personnel issue, it's a tactical issue. And that is where I think Motta has failed, and I think it's right to criticise and question him.
Yeah, okay, that's a good place to finish. We have to move on though now. Rome derby, the big game of the weekend, and Roma win 2-0. Claudio Ranieri is really the hero. I mean, Lorenzo Pellegrini on the pitch, but Ranieri, I have to sing his praises. What a job I think he's doing at Roma. I mean, the way that he's turned Roma around so much. It's a completely different team. And that was all displayed, I think, in the derby as well, especially in that first half where I thought Roma were absolutely fantastic. I mean, he's the way that he's found a system and a way of playing to get the best out of everyone, the way that he's resurrected the big name players whose Roma careers seemed like they were over when he took over. I mean, Dybala was on his way out. Hummels was a joke. Paredes was a joke. Even Pellegrini, who was getting absolutely hammered by the fans and was blamed for the sackings of Mourinho and De Rossi, and the way that he's resurrected all those players, he's created a team, a togetherness, the spirit of the team, mentally very strong. Something that Ranieri said at the end of the game. He said, "Like, we are a team now," but also like tactically, like really quite a versatile team he's created now already, like a team that can play on the front foot like they did in the first half against Lazio, but then also play on the back foot like they did in the second half and soak up the pressure and defend well and defend as a unit, defend as a team. And they're in great form. They've won 5 of their last 7, drawn the other one, and now he wins the derby as well. And he's won all 5 of his derbies as a Roma coach. I mean, he really is like a legend of Rome. Really, like, I mean, how can you not love Ranieri? I mean, everybody loves Ranieri, but if you're a Roma fan, how can you not love Ranieri? What he's done, and just to finish off, I have to say, like, everything that he's doing is turning into gold. I mean, that bluff of Pellegrini saying before kickoff
that's what I was going to
that
say.
Pellegrini wasn't going to play, and then he plays him.
But listen, he is an Altmeister. He's been around the block and he's got his techniques. And he didn't just use the stick. He didn't just use the carrot. He didn't just use defend him. But he also kind of made this kind of old school approach of validation, but also demand performance, in the sense that, yes, it's more difficult if you're Rome, the things he alluded to, like, yes, it is more difficult if you are a son of Rome and if you are a Romanista and you're the captain of Roma and things aren't working, it is more difficult, it weighs on you more, it is a different piazza, it's a different environment. This is how it works, which is very true of places like Roma, Lazio, Napoli, etc. But then to say he's not going to start, he's not going to play, but without really like harshly creating drama about it, but very calmly saying, no, I'm not going to start him, he's not in the right place right now, and then starting him. That kind of thing, that's what you do when you're an experienced manager who knows how to kickstart and jolt players mentally. And Ranieri has done it all his life, and he's done so really well at it. He is good with doing that, and we've seen it before as well. And he's got a very good way of rehabilitating players if they, in the sense that getting them, if they are available and are willing to sacrifice themselves for the project and the team and the cause. And the way that he did that with Pellegrini, and the hunger in Pellegrini's eyes, even if it was just for one game and one derby, to be able to get him to channel that frustration and that angst. He knew exactly what he was doing, and it worked brilliantly. And it was, I just can't get away from how, I feel we're so blessed to see the last dance of Ranieri, that it is at Roma, that it is at the, helping his Roma kind of end this season with some kind of respect and dignity. And it's and again, the derby thing that you touched on,
that's mad. That's insane record, that is.
Not just in Roma, but also when he was at Inter, he won the derby. Like, he has a good derby record, period. And it's again, it's like he deserves it, all the accolades he gets, because he is a lovely.
I liked what he said about derbies, how to play derbies. Like, he says sometimes you can be too fired up, too motivated for derbies, and you need to get the balance right between being up for it, but also being lucid, and something that Ancelotti often speaks about as well. Like, Ancelotti doesn't like players that are too fired up sometimes, because he feels like it makes them nervous and makes them technically more likely to make mistakes. So, I think that Ranieri, very, very good kind of with the balance of that. And that was shown, I think, also with what you said about Pellegrini, as well, feeling that pressure of being who he is and from Rome and everything. And I mean, it's amazing. He scores after 10 minutes to break the deadlock, a beautiful goal.
And it's not just that he scores the goal, it's the build-up too is beautiful, and he's involved in that, and then the ball falls to him and he places it absolutely stunningly. It's a beautiful, beautiful goal, and you could just see how much that meant to him, and how much it meant to the entire Roma environment, that their captain, their guy, the link between the city and the club and the squad, that is so important to them, and he's a
Yeah.
popular guy, and they all like him. And
I thought it was a great
beautiful.
first half performance from Roma. I thought everyone really performed well, except maybe Dovbyk. It was a bit quiet, but apart from that, I thought everybody else was really, really good. I mean, the defense stood up, and especially in the second half. Svila made some good saves when he was needed. I thought they were really good at wing back, especially in the first half. That's where they caused all the problems at Lazio. Angelino, Salamakers. Salamakers got a goal and assist, and Hummels as well. I mean, he's looking like the Hummels, peak Hummels at times. The way
Yeah.
that he starts attacks from the back, brilliant. Like with some of his passing with both feet to kind of like break the line, spread the play, medium range passing, but also bringing the ball out from defence, going on his runs, the
He's
experience that he
brought
brings.
stability and experience
Yeah.
and calm to a back line that lacked some
Mm.
calm. I think together with Mancini,
It's
they're
pretty
looking at...
damning, I think, certainly on Juric now, what Ranieri's doing. The way that Ranieri has got these individuals that Juric completely, I mean, humiliated. Let's be honest. The way that he humiliated Hummels, making him warm up with 5 minutes to go in a game, and then Paredes being just left on the bench, and Dybala, and like the way that Juric was. I mean, just a joke. I was
I don't know
quite.
if it's
I,
about
I,
you.
I was quite lenient on Juric. I tried to say, well, he was put into a really, really difficult situation and everything. But maybe
He should never have been appointed. That was a stupid appointment.
Ranieri's starting to make me rethink that and think, well, actually, because Roma actually look really, really good now, and Ranieri's shown that it is possible with a good manager and making right decisions and knowing how to use your players and
I don't
motivate
think
them.
it's a technical issue when it comes to Roma with Ranieri. I think it's both a technical, but it's also these things that we refer to in Swedish as soft values. Okay, do you understand where you are? Do you understand the environment? Do you understand the culture? Do you understand what it takes to be at Roma and how to succeed at Roma or a club? Ranieri is Roma through and through. Juric doesn't, he would have needed time, at least a whole summer, in order to get into the swing of things. I thought that was an insane appointment at the time, and I said it at the time. I think it's a bad appointment. I think it's bad for Juric. I think it's bad for Roma. But what has happened now is that you have someone who understands the entire environment, has been able to unite the entire environment, and because of his experience, because of who he is, young and old, experienced and unexperienced, they listen to him. They follow him, and that's united Roma, because they were very fragmented after De Rossi was sacked. That was one of the most. It's a decision so stupid if you look at the totality of it, that I think it will almost be studied what they did during that during that period of time. The way, talk about breaking a club in half. The way that De Rossi was sacked, the way that first they kept him, the mercato, the shit show with Dybala, then sacking De Rossi. It's like taking a toy. It's like taking a beautiful marble statue and then just chucking it on the ground. That's what they did. Well, Juric was, and then trying to put it together by bringing an elephant with a hoof or a horse, which is the perfect crushing a device to try to put that marble statue together. They've actually brought a guy who knows how to repair statues, and Ranieri
It was a bad day for Zurich, that's for sure. He got hammered 5-0 at home by
but
Brentford.
Southampton, they're dead last.
The question now is, like, how far can Roma go? I mean, the top four is this season. That is, top four is probably too much to ask. I mean, they're 12 points.
It's not going to happen.
They're 12 points behind top four, but you never know, because Juventus and Milan keep dropping points like they have in the first half of the season. And I'm looking at Roma's run, and they have a pretty decent run of games. I mean, look at this. They've got Bologna away in Serie A, Bologna away, Genoa at home, Udinese away. Then they have Napoli at home. And then after that, they have Venezia, Parma, Monza, Como, Empoli, Cagliari, Lecce. I mean, if they keep playing like the way they have, obviously they're going to have Europe as well, which will take it out of them. But I mean, if they keep playing the way they are, I mean, they could rack up a lot of points, and they could suddenly. It's going to be very, very difficult and unlikely. Listen, I'm saying Roma what I'm seeing at the moment, I think that they have the players. They have pretty good depth. They have, I mean, in the Europa League especially, I think
Yeah.
Roma are a threat in the Europa League now because they have the experience as well. So many good European runs in recent years. They have the enthusiasm back. They have the pride. And I was looking at this yesterday. Look at the teams that are in the Europa League this season, right? From England, Man United and Tottenham, they've got nothing to fear from those two teams. They're both a complete joke. Spain, Athletic Bilbao and Real Sociedad. Germany, Frankfurt and Hoffenheim. France, Lyon. Turkey, two dangerous teams, Galatasaray and Fenerbahce. And then, of course, you've got Lazio from Italy. I mean, in my opinion, Roma, in terms of on paper, the players they have, and the experience, as I mentioned, I think they can challenge any of them. I don't think they've got anything to fear from anyone. I think Roma make sure they get through first because they've still got, they had a bad start to the Europa League campaign. I think Roma can. I think Roma are in there with a shout for the Europa League.
We've said, I mean, as for the Serie A, I think top 4 is completely out of the picture. There's no chance. Top 6 is a possibility. But I think more importantly, like I said and have said since before the season started, I do see Roma as a potential threat in the Europa League. And I have no reason to change that because of looking at all those teams that are the main contenders, maybe Athletic aside, who've actually been really, really good, Athletic Bilbao. They're also someone I don't discount in Europe. They're fantastic at home. They barely concede any goals, and they're a very good side. They're a very strong unit. So they're also thereabouts. But yeah, Lazio, Roma, Athletic, United, Spurs, Lyon, Frankfurt, these, you never know. It's a really interesting tournament. But yes, I do think that in Europe, in the Europa League, Roma can be a big threat. And I really, really hope that the draw allows us for a Lazio-Roma final. I think it would be the most epic, most beautiful, most fantastic Europa League final we've seen in decades.
Ranieri's final game, Lazio in the Europa League final. That would be pretty special. That would be the way to definitely go out for good, wouldn't it? Like finally retire, because he keeps overturning this retirement so many times. But yeah, I like it. If we speak quickly about Lazio though, I think bad first half from Lazio. The defence let them down on the goals, especially the fullbacks.
Very passive.
Nuno Tavares and Maricic were caught out positionally, and just the defence in general let them down. But as Baroni said after the game, I thought they were really good second half. I thought they rallied. They showed good tempo. They were really pushing Roma back.
And they reacted.
They reacted well. They just couldn't get the goal. They were unlucky. They definitely deserved a goal. They definitely deserved to reopen the game. Whether they would have got an equaliser in the end, I don't know. I really liked them second half. So listen, obviously, whenever you lose a derby, it's for any fans of Roma or Lazio, it's devastating. Like it means more to those fans than the season as a whole often. And obviously, they're going to be devastated, but. Again, I don't think that they shouldn't panic. Yes, their form has dropped a bit lately. It's been a bit more inconsistent. I mean, their last 7 in Serie A is 1-2, drawn 1, lost 3. But you need to take into account they had a very tough run of games through that. They played Roma, Atalanta, Inter, Napoli within that time, and they've actually taken 4 points from those 4 matches, which isn't great, but it's not a disgrace. It's still pretty good. It's pretty decent. So they just need to keep their heads. They're in a great position. They're in 4th place. They're 3 points ahead of Juventus. Okay, Juve do have a game in hand. They've had their little dip, but they've got a good run of games coming up now. They've got Como, Hellas, Cagliari, Monza in their next 5 games, while Juve have a horror run, which I mentioned before. I'm not sure what Milan's runs, but they're in a really good position. And based on what I saw in the second half, I think they're going to continue to do well. So yes, it will hurt, but I think I saw enough from that to tell me that they're going to continue having a good season.
Well, exactly. I think now Baroni's job becomes really important, and in the sense that can he react once more after the Inter drubbing? They reacted, they struggled, but they won. This is when he has to show his mettle, and so far I think he's done really well. I don't think they've got bad form in the Serie A. I think it's more like you said, drawing. They beat Napoli, they drew Atalanta, they lost the derby. That's never good, but it can happen. These derbies are very special. So they're still in a very good place. They're top of the Europa League in the league phase. They are still within very good chances mathematically to finish in the top four. They're in a good spot. They're also in the Coppa Italia where they play Inter in a couple of weeks. So it's about how you react. And so far, Lazio under Baroni, one of the good things is they do know how to react, not just in games like against Roma in the derby, but also after a tough defeat, after a tough result. And that's what he has to continue doing. He has to continue looking at, getting the group to rally around his football, his identity, what he wants to do, and to continue delivering. And in producing great results, because again, I do think that this could be a very fantastic season for Roman football, both Lazio and Roma. I hope the draw allows for it, but I would love a Europa League final between Lazio and Roma. For Roman football, for Italian football, it would be fantastic. It would be beautiful. And the fact that you don't even have any Champions League teams coming into from the Champions League.
Exactly.
I like that. I really like that. I think it makes the Europa League its own kind of thing. And look, I like you said, I mean, the upcoming games, Como, Hellas, Cagliari, Monza, is not impossible. They can put in a good, decent run together. They do have the quality to win it. But they, it's again in the city of Rome, in Naples. The issue is always about keeping your head cool. That's always been the biggest problems that these clubs and these players at these clubs face, is maintain and the manager in turn to manage the expectations and keep everyone's heads cool. The sun shines a bit brighter in those places, and it can get to people.
That's a good place to finish, because they didn't keep their heads cool right at the end.
No.
There was a customary brawl at the end, which Castellanos got a red card, which is again what I'm coming to. They need to keep their heads cool, because he's going to get banned now, maybe 3 games, because it was violent conduct. So look, it's a derby, it happens.
And just to be clear, the reason that Castellanos was sent off was because of the kick.
Yeah, he studied Hummels in the
thigh, the balls.
Yeah, or the balls. Yeah,
very,
depending on how big Hummels' balls are. But yeah,
yes, but that is the area on the male anatomy on which the testicles usually are found.
Okay.
Regardless of the size of said testicles.
Yeah.
But that's why he was sent off, and that's dumb. But it's also par for the course with the Roman derby. It was a very heated Roman derby, and I'm surprised that that no one else was sent off before that. If I'm perfectly honest with you.
Yeah. It looked, the way it was shaping up earlier on in the game, it looked like one of them, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So. Absolutely.
Yeah, but no, it was a great game, a very enjoyable game for Nitro. I enjoyed watching it, because it wasn't, to be honest with you, it wasn't a great weekend in Serie A for games. I mean, there wasn't many of them to starters, because of Atalanta, Inter, Milan, and Juventus playing the Supercoppa. But many of the games were really pretty boring. For me, anyway. I'm sure you'd have enjoyed those 0-0 relegation games. But
but I mean, this is the thing about the relegation battle, that you have to look at it like it's not a short story. It's a novel. It's a collection of novels. And this point in the season, mid-season, when these teams are kind of careful, depending on where they are, and you look at where most of them are, and you're thinking, well, okay, so you don't want to risk too much, and it becomes this kind of like a chess match, not just tactically in the game, but also looking towards the future. I mean, Lecce Genoa 0-0, Torino Parma 0-0. Like there is a special, like, they live their own little world, don't they? And it's really, really interesting to see.
Yeah. Well, before we get onto that, not much to say, but Napoli temporarily go back to the top of Serie A after I thought, very impressive performance away at Fiorentina. They win 3-0, considering the players they had missing. No Buongiorno, no Kvaratskhelia, no Politano. I thought first half especially, they really took control of the game, dominated the first half, clinical with their chances as well. A lot of really impressive individual performances. David Neres, I mean, what a fantastic signing, under-heralded signing Neres has been. Whenever he plays, he performs. He's always scoring, assisting. His goal contributions per minute is really incredible. I mean, there's even an argument. I mean, he broke the deadlock. There's even an argument for me that pound for pound, he's been better than Clara this season based on
I
minutes played.
100% agree.
He's
I
been
100%
really, really
agree.
good. And, I think there's the question now. I mean, Conte doesn't like using Neres and Clara together because I think balance and defensive coverage and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, it's becoming really, really difficult for Conte to leave him out. How do you leave out Neres from the start? Because he's always making things happen. He's always scoring. He's always assisting. Like, it's becoming impossible not to play him.
Oh, it is becoming, and this is. I don't want to take a victory lap just yet, but because I think there's so much, we're only at the midway point. But 44 points after 19 games, 12 goals conceded, 30 scored. That's nowhere near good enough, and that's why I don't want to take a victory lap, but also want to concede the point and also validate the criticism that this is not sustainable. You can't win the league scoring 60 goals over a season. It's just, it's possible, but it's very, very unlikely. And that's why when people say this is not sustainable, I agree with them. However, my counterpoint throughout all of these dreary Conte November 1-0 wins has been this. Usually, if history is anything to go by, from January, February onwards, that's when Conte teams hit their peak. That's when the attack starts clicking. And usually, up until now, it's been like that. And if you take into consideration the fact that this is when it becomes really important, the fact that Napoli only play once a week, that's why I've consistently said Napoli are a title contender. They will fight. It is a 3-horse race where Napoli are going to be there for the simple reason that now you saw against Fiorentina how fluid it looked, how natural it looked, because Conte, his football and his system that's how they are. That's how it works. It takes time to imprint the attack more than it does the defense. The defense usually with him sits, because that's what he focuses on in the beginning. He starts with that. He stabilizes. Once that's stable, then he moves to focusing more on getting players to attack and move the way he wants them to do naturally. That usually takes about 5 to 6 months if he has a full preseason. And especially now when there's only one game a season, this becomes particularly important from now onwards, because now he can also mentally go to the group and be like, we have 19 finals between here and eternal glory. And that, I think there are few managers, not just in world football today, but throughout history, who are as good as Antonio Conte to create a group to believe and take it one day at a time, one final at a time, firing them up, getting everyone almost foaming at the mouth like a rabid dog, but not crossing that line. I think he's a master at that. So, I'm not saying they're going to win, but I'm saying they're going to be there to the end, and the others better watch out.
Yeah, and
Atalanta and Inter need to watch out. They cannot afford to drop points, because if Conte at this moment in the season racks up a 4, 6, 7, 8 point lead, that's it. That's gone. It's over.
Yeah, I was very impressed by Napoli. Not just Neres, but I thought Rrahmani was absolutely brilliant in this game without Buongiorno. Brilliant. The number of blocks, important blocks he made. One absolutely superb goal-saving block at 2-0. and
with Juan Jesus next to
with
him.
Juan Jesus, who actually played well as well, but
Yeah, he did.
he did as good a job on Moise Keane, Rrahmani, and Keane was probably the only one for Fiorentina that really turned up, but Rrahmani really defended him well. I thought the centre midfield was very dominant. Anguissa is really picking up steam. McTominay scored another goal, and very impressive, very impressive from Napoli. Have to though take into account that Fiorentina have lost their way now. They are dropping off their performances, not just the results, the performances. This has been happening. This has been going on for about a month now. 2 draws, 3 losses in their last 5 games in all
Before we go
competitions.
to Fiorentina, I just need to just end on Napoli here, because the run here is fascinating. So they've got Verona at home, Atalanta away, Juventus at home, Roma away, Udinese at home, Lazio away, Como away, Napoli at home. Inter at home. These next games are absolutely
Yeah, you're going to
fascinating.
make or break the
Yeah.
Scudetto chance. Yeah.
It's going to be so interesting to see how Conte handles this and how Naples handles this, because it's not a natural fit. We have to remember that Antonio Conte Juventus winning is the only thing that matters. That's not the Napoli way. There's been a compromise between Napoli and Conte that I'm going to get you back at the top. Give the keys. Give me the wheel. Give me the keys. Let me run this. I'm not going to do it your way, but I'm going to get you back to the top. And everyone was like, okay. But when, despite them winning, there was lots of grumblings and annoying people saying this isn't Napoli, this is not how we do. So this compromise has worked because of the results. But if they start scoring goals and winning consistently and so on and so forth, it's a fascinating project. It is. It really is.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be make or break for them because, like you said, Atalanta, Juventus, Roma, Lazio, Inter, those 5 big teams in the next 8 games. And then after that, they've got Fiorentina and Milan in 2 of the next 3 after that.
Yeah.
So we're talking about basically they're playing all the big teams between now and the end of March. So
And usually that's when you're playing it during a period of time when the Conte teams are hitting form. So
yeah, for sure. Fiorentina, just quickly on Fiorentina, they have dropped off now. 2 draws, 3 losses in their last 5 games. As I said, they have been struggling for a while. They were lucky to draw with Juventus as well. In my opinion, they deserved to lose that. Before that, they were also lucky to beat Cagliari. I remember in a game they went out to Empoli in the Coppa Italia against an Empoli reserve team. So they have started to fall off. It's kind of what was expected. I've said consistently. I think that Lazio are going to have the potential to really stick there in the top 4 and maybe even finish in the top 4. Maybe they've got a chance. Lazio. I think they'll challenge Fiorentina. I never thought that would happen. I thought that they would start to fall away. I mean, they're still there at the moment, but I feel like that we're seeing them return towards their kind of like the mean. They've started to fall away. And a few of the players that were playing well started to drop off. I mean, Komutso has been pretty poor the last few games. I have to be honest. He was really poor against Juventus. He had an error here in the goal, along with the other youngster Moreno, who had a bit of a horror show in this game. The whole defence actually was bad. Dodò was getting done on the left, even by Spinazzola. Parisi on the left, on Fiorentina's left. I think it's again, like with Lazio, Fiorentina just need to keep their heads. They're way overperforming what was expected at the start of the season. They just need to keep their heads. Just
Look,
keep going.
I think Fiorentina with the Bova situation, and I really have nothing but empathy and sympathy for them. They're always hit by okay, this time it ended well, but they're always hit by these crazy things from the outside that is just that would break any group and would shatter any group. And I do think that they have regressed to the mean a little bit more, like qualitatively. But I look at Fiorentina's season and I'm happy that they're out of the Coppa Italia. I look at them and I'm thinking, well, what can you do? I think a top 6 finish is what they need to focus on. And more importantly, I want to see them make a run for it, really, in the Conference League. And I know Chelsea are going to be a difficult nut to crack, but in a final, in a one-off game, anything can happen. And I think that would be a fantastic revenge for everything that's gone on the last few years, and would probably launch Palladino's career as a serious coach or potential big club coach. Because I do think he's done really well. I've been very impressed by him this season. I was a little bit skeptical, depending on given his last season at Monza, but I think what he's done so far and the way that he's handled himself, and of course in the middle of, personal tragedy when his mother passed away as well. He's handled it the best he could, and again, Fiorentina are just so unlucky. I mean, these things that keep happening to them year after year after year, you feel that at some point, enough's enough. Leave them alone. Leave Fiorentina and people connected to that club alone. Let them heal. It's between Astori, Barone, Bove, Palladino's mum. It's just non-stop, and it's really there's a human side to this that I think most people are sympathetic to.
Yeah, for sure. And they also lost a former manager. This week or last week as well, Aldo Groppi, Torino legend, former midfielder for Torino, who was a former manager twice of Fiorentina as well. Okay, rest of the excuse me.
As soon as we want to talk about the relegation base, you start coughing.
Yes, it was terrible. The rest of the Serie A weekend fixtures: Venezia 1, Empoli 1, Verona 0, Udinese 0, Lecce 0, Genoa 0. Torino 0, Parma 0, and Monza 1, Cagliari 2. I mean,
the contempt in your voice is just so beautiful to listen to.
Oh gosh, terrible! I tried watching some of these relegation games. They were bad, really bad. Although Monza Cagliari was quite exciting, to be fair. But yeah, some of those 0-0s were pretty unwatchable. Let's be honest. There's not much.
I just love this point of the season where, like, in the relegation race, they all kind of do this kind of. It's not biscotti, but they don't want to hurt each other, especially if they're, if you're in the mid-table and you're kind of overperforming a little bit.
Leftover Christmas biscotti.
Yeah, leftover panettone, dry stale panettone. Listen. Couple of things I want to say. Lecce, unlucky against Genoa. Thorsby, with one of the most horrific misses in football history. Yeah. I saw a stat that the XG on that chance that Thorsby missed for Genoa is 0.98.
Yes, I saw that as well.
I mean, that is genuinely astonishing. But somehow it's not as bad as Gagliardini's, which tells you all about, because I rewatched the Gagliardini one and that is still worse.
What was Gagliardini? 0.99?
Oh, yeah, 100. Like, you don't miss that. It's impossible to miss that. Unattacked, alone, with the goalkeeper on the floor. No, never mind. You can't even blame that the ball came at him too high. Anyway, that's that. Sebastiano Esposito scoring his 8th Serie A goal, if I'm not mistaken, for Empoli.
There's been calls for him to get an Italy caller.
Yeah, and I understand why they do that, but I disagree with those calls. Unless you in the sense that qualitatively I don't think he's there yet. But in a two-man attack, he's actually serviceable. And Colombo next to him has been outstanding. Like that, the goal that he scores is all Colombo, fighting, winning the ball, playing him through. So yeah, I don't know about Italy just yet, but it's an interesting career and it's an interesting thing to look at for his future, because there's no doubt that Empoli are going to buy him. They have a 5 million option that they're going to exercise it, of course, and they're going to buy him from Inter, and I think that's a good thing. But I hope more importantly that he stays at Empoli for another season and builds on this season, and see where we can go from there. I still think that he's personally, this is just my personal opinion, I've thought it all the time, that I think he's the kind of striker at the level of a Pinamonti, or maybe above Pinamonti perhaps, but thereabouts.
I think he has more technical quality though than Pinamonti. Pinamonti's just
well, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I know, but I'm saying slightly Pinamonti plus, if you want, a Pinamonti premium, but not more than that. I've never thought that he's good enough for any of the top 4 clubs. But, who knows? If
He's
he
young,
continues to
yeah.
develop, then I'll happily hold my hand up and say I was wrong. But it's an interesting one. And then, of course, Monza Cagliari. Monza are in a world of trouble. Like, it's just not...
Very strange appointment, I thought.
Very
Replacing
strange
Nesta with
appointment.
Salvatore Bocchetti with the lack of experience. Very strange appointment for me.
Same.
Uncle Festa, I'm not sure what he was
I
thinking.
feel that Uncle Festa without what's the name of the father in the Addams family? Without Silvio, he's lost. He's lost, and I wonder if this might not be the end of the Galliani era in Italian at the top levels of Italian football. Gomez, yeah, thank you, Gomez. I love how you know this. Yeah, but I mean, I'm looking at their form. Sweet Mother of Christ! I mean, it's just
I remember about like 15, pushing on like 15 years ago when I used to write articles about Galliani, and I used to just call him Uncle Festa in the article. I used to just call him Uncle Festa. That's what I used to call him. They used to call him Galliani, Uncle
Zio
Festa.
Festa, but he's always been called that. Yeah, no, it's I feel bad for Monza, but it's been a nice acquaintance. We'll see what happens with the club. I don't feel like the Berlusconi family are too I don't see them bouncing back, but I could be wrong. Galliani is a legend of Italian football. Well, maybe he can pull one out of the hat, but I'm looking at the quality of that squad, and they've got some interesting players, but overall it does feel like...
I think they're underperforming, personally.
They are underperforming.
I think they should be doing better. I think they lack a striker, though, and that's what they need. They need a number 9. They had a number 9, actually, I think they'll be fine. But anyway, let's finish off with Baggio, Premface and Serie Ass of the week. Baggio, I think there's only one man it can be. That's Claudio Ranieri for masterminding Roma's win in the derby, and especially that piece of genius bluffing the Lorenzo Pellegrini decision to start him, having said he wouldn't starts him. He scores the goal to break the deadlock. Genius from Ranieri. 5 wins out of 5 in the Rome derby as a manager, which is absolutely insane. Incredible.
For me, it's got to be Pellegrini for the way that he reacted. It's the goal, the everything, like the way that he has handled this, the beauty, how he played in the build up, and then that wonderful finish. He's been linked with the move as well, hasn't he, to Inter? There's been talk of this Fratesi Pellegrini swap. And of course, that kind of has also been part of it, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But and for him to then score this goal for his Roma as the captain in Rome, Roma as the home team at the Olimpico, and the way that he does it too, it's
a great story. Also, a great story is my Premface of the week. So this is from Portugal. Second division side Oliveirense. This come from Zach Lowy. I saw this on Twitter just to give credit. So second division side Oliveirense didn't have paint to draw the goal line for their match against Felgueiras. So they used, what did they use instead? Milk. I had to actually double check this to see if this was actually true, because it just seems so unbelievable. But they actually used milk to draw the goal.
I love this so much.
This is the kind of thing you would get in Italian football, like lower league divisions as well. Amazing.
This is peak Mediterranean football shithousery.
Yes.
Like, just solve the issue with whatever you got at home.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It reminds me of
the pantry, look into the fridge. What can we do here? I love this. I love it.
It reminds me of my Sunday league in Bedford when I used to play, when they didn't have, they you usually have pegs to keep the nets down on the ground, so that like if the ball goes in the net, it doesn't roll under the net. The pegs, yeah. Well, I remember playing where we didn't have pegs in the ground, so we used like big wheelie bins and like put the wheelie bins on to keep the nets down behind the goal. I remember that. Or the other one that came to mind when I saw this story, slightly different, but this is one of the great stories. So one game, This was when we were playing youth football. Our goalkeeper didn't turn up, or he was unavailable, so we had to have an outfield player in goal. And this player turned up, and he didn't have any gloves. So we're like all rushing around. Oh, we need to get some gloves. What are we going to do? So his dad, who bless his heart isn't with us anymore, rest in peace. He went home to get some gloves for his son so that he could play in goal. And he returned with gardening gloves. He didn't have any proper gloves. We gave him the gardening gloves. They still had like all the
I
dirt.
love this.
They had all the dirt on there. So
I love it.
So there he is. His son plays the whole game with gardening gloves in goal, and we got
this is beauty.
We
of
got
football.
absolutely smashed.
This is the beauty of football. Like this is like football's essence of, when at these lower levels where you get into you meet these personalities, and you got parents who are stressed and they just want to resolve the situation so the kids can play. I love this. It's absolutely fantastic.
It was brilliant, and we got smashed 7-1. We got smashed 7-1 in that game. So the gardening gloves.
Were you playing for Bedford Tigers or what they
called?
No,
this was under 11s. I was playing for a team called Euro Colts.
What?
Euro Colts.
Euro Colts.
Colts, yeah. Colts is it's quite a common name in England for the end of a football team. So you
really?
say Colts. Yes, it's like town or city, but you only get it in more in youth football, like Sunday league youth football.
Really?
You don't really. I haven't seen it in professional or senior men's football. I haven't really seen it. You see it more in youth football. Yeah, Euro Colts. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's lovely.
No, we got smashed. Yeah, and his gardening gloves were.
I love the gardening glove story. Yeah. It's brilliant. I love that. I love
that. Serie Ass of the week.
Yeah. This is one of the funniest things. Like, I can't stop laughing. So Leandro Paredes wanted to hype up the Rome derby, and so he decided to release on his Instagram. He decided to put out a photo of what he thought was the Colosseum. Only it wasn't. It was Arena di Verona, and it's not even the same city. And this is such a. It's brilliant. Obviously, I don't even. It wouldn't surprise me if it was him. I hope it kind of is. I would be very sad if this
probably. I'll tell you who it probably was. It's probably the same person that runs the official Serie A Twitter account, because they did the same thing last year. I don't think it was the Arena di Verona. It was something else. It was the Milan derby.
Yeah,
it was the Milan derby. They were promoting the Milan derby, and they used a picture of the Colosseum as to promote the Milan derby.
It's hilarious to me how the Colosseum ends up constantly being misidentified in situations, because it is only one of the most famous buildings, not just
one of the most historic building ever.
It's hilarious to me how people can't seem to get that right. It's funny. Leandro Paredes, the Paredes one, I just giggled like a child.
Reminds me of the famous viral post of a girl in front of a pylon and saying that she's there at the Eiffel Tower.
That's brilliant. It's brilliant. But yeah,
that'll be the next time when Juventus are playing PSG or Inter are playing PSG. That'll be
absolutely. Oh, and also one last Baggio as well: the Rome derby as a whole, the atmosphere, the songs, the chanting, the tifos, the choreographies, the everything. That derby is truly spectacular.
Yeah, magnificent.
That's a Baggio as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's leave it at that.
Yeah, before we go, I just want to say so. Last week we basically did all the Q&A and post-match reaction pods for free to give everyone a taste of what we do. This week we'll be back tonight already. We're recording this on Monday morning. I'll be doing a post-match reaction pod for the Supercoppa Italiana, where Inter and Milan face off in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. And then later on in the week we'll be doing a Q&A as well. Both of those are for patrons only. And as always, remember, you can sign up on patreon.com or Spotify, or now on YouTube. memberships. Links will be provided in the description.
Yeah, thank you, Nima. Okay, let's leave it at that, everybody. Have a great week. We will see you soon. Ciao, ciao.